No, it's great what they do.
Oh, right.
Good.
But we need to put it up.
Okay, let's come to order.
Saw that. Oh,
We're confirming we do have a quorum and the report of posting of the agenda
The agenda has been posted.
and announcements to any changes.
No, I don't.
Okay, public comment?
Yes.
We have public comment. Take your time.
Probably should have been done after one of the agenda items, but I know you don't take comment during the agenda items, and now I didn't know what you were gonna talk about. But COG has said, not the COG, Metro directors have said repeatedly that they are not gonna put projects through areas that have been redlined in the past if the project will negatively impact the area. Okay? And so I'm just showing you, here's a red line diagram from the 1930s. And Glendale is red, solid red. And here is the freeway right through it. Okay? As a retired engineer, I do research projects as a hobby. I don't get paid. I was told they didn't want it. That's why I looked it up. Okay, there was also a bill in the assembly to not do projects like this if certain conditions were met. So also one of the transportation committee meetings, the chair said we really should be taking input from the cities that are affected about it, whether they want these projects. And nobody asked their opinion, and I can't be an official spokesperson. So I'm just telling you what I presented before, that they didn't want it. And so now it sounds like you guys don't want it either, because you don't want to have to pay 170 million for it. So you might want to weigh that factor in as well. Okay, and so I think that's all I'm going to say about it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, how much time was it?
I do want to,
Oh,
I
that's
do want to
good.
mention, we do take comments during the agenda on items on the agenda. Turns out it isn't on this. agenda.
Well, now it's a non-agenda item for this committee, but for
Right.
the last one,
But we do take comment during the item.
okay, well, maybe I should have worn it up then, but part of the body is here, so
Thank you.
I'm getting it.
We appreciate you. Any other public comment? Okay, hearing none. Consent calendar? To approve this consent calendar, or somebody want to take anything off?
I'll make the motion.
Have a motion
Okay.
and a second.
let's see.
Any opposition? Any opposition?
Let's you.
Okay.
Action items.
Hey,
South Bay Fiber Network.
okay, so we have been, the sale between ADF, American Dark Fiber, and RSG is proceeding. We still do not have a final thing to bring to you, but our lawyer is working with us on the purchase agreement and some other agreements that are going on. I don't have, we're having a meeting today with the lawyer. There are some issues that we're going back and forth on. One has to do with the fact that in our existing agreement, or like if something happens funding, we are the first ones that get paid back. We have security over their interests, and we want to make sure that that stays and that there is not somebody that supervenes ahead of us to get the assets if something should happen. We should be the first ones to get the assets. So it's things like that that we're negotiating over right now. Jake, how many meetings have you had with cities so far?
Off the top of my head, I think we have only not met in two.
Yeah, so the new owner is very serious. He's met with, sounds like 13 cities. Yeah, and so they're trying to get a needs assessment of what the cities want and what they're looking for in the future. And then on March 19th, which is next Wednesday, we have a panel at the 88 Cities Summit in Torrance. We're gonna be on at 10:30. If you're coming to that, please come to our panel. We have, we're gonna give an overview and Mark Henderson will be part of the panel, which we think is a great asset to our deliberation. So I can't, the action item says, consider approval. I'm not asking you to do that. Is there, Wally, Jake, is there anything else to add on fiber? No,
It's important. That's what we want to add.
that it's important.
No.
Yes, it's very important. We are looking forward to the sale going through because the new owner has plans to expand the network and that's what we're looking for. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Master Services Agreement?
No, we don't have that yet. But now we're on to homeless.
Oh, I'm sorry, homeless.
Okay, so before I call on Ronson, I want to show you what we got this week. David and I were at the CalCOG, California Association Council of Governments, and we were awarded and I had to carry this home and get inspected by the TSA. We were awarded a Regional Innovation Award. And Ronson, I should give this to you and then you can put it in somewhere in the office. But this is for,
Have a case.
yes, this is.
We have an award.
Zero and client.
We'll need a big trophy case in the new office, just.
Yes, yes.
Put that
So
on.
this is for us and for our homeless.
Thank you, Ron. I just want you to know you're getting a lot of kudos throughout people I know.
Oh, okay. Well,
So,
that's great.
very good job. We appreciate that.
Okay, so Ronson, take it away.
All right. Okay, so I got a lot to update you on, partly because of the Measure A, $1 billion of extra funding, so there's a lot of updates there. But first, homeless count happened end of February. There was a low volunteer turnout. That was kind of the theme of this year's count. The app worked pretty well. We got moved to the last day, so then by that time, all the bugs had been worked out. So it was pretty smooth from an application standpoint. That had been previously been a bug, pretty buggy in the past, but it was pretty smooth this year. But the problem this year was low volunteer turnout because of the fires and the delay of the count. But we had the lowest count ever in Redondo Beach, so it was good. I think the low volunteer turnout is going to suppress results artificially. So that's the update there on the homeless count. So something that's going to happen really quickly, I think, is the CASA funding. So this is the 35% of Measure A is going to this housing trust fund that I'm an alternate on the board of. But I believe, based on the state statutes of the CASA, that we're going to receive roughly around $5 million pretty soon for rental arrears and legal services. This is prevention dollars coming out of La Casa. The COG is one of the eligible jurisdictions to get this money, and there's about $100 million of this money. And so, and there's only 10 eligible jurisdictions. You know, the other COGs and LA City, at Long Beach, these are the jurisdictions that can get this money. And so we're one of them. So that money will be coming in really quickly. That would more than double the size of my funding, which is great. But there might be some growing pains. I probably will need to add to my team, probably like additional project coordinators, some admin help, and some legal help. So just want to kind of put that on the radar. Nothing is set in stone yet, but this stuff might happen quickly. We got to get all these agreements in place by July 1. I doubt we're going to make that deadline, but that's the ultimate goal. On top of the $5 million, there's also production preservation dollars for affordable housing. That's another $6 million that might be coming our way. So a total of $11 million of the cost of funding coming to the COG.
Ronson, do we have to share that with West Side or that's just for us?
That's just for us, but that's a good point, Jackie. We're part of the Southwest sector, and that's how La Casa is kind of organizing itself. So the West Side, the 5 cities in the West Side are part of our kind of sector. So whatever funding comes our way, we'll have to split some off to the West Side. This amount is just for us, and so I think the West Side would get like an additional $5 million. That's Santa Monica, Culver City, West Hollywood, and their portion of LA City.
And Ronson, can some of that fund from the COG goes to the cities by some?
Yeah. So like that's a great question. So like for example, City of Gardena you guys run your own rental arrear program or prevention program for seniors, things like that. So yeah, I can definitely just send that over to Gardena and you guys can just administer your city's rental arrear program. And then if Hawthorne, I believe Hawthorne might have something, maybe not, but if you guys want to set up something too like that, we can.
Alex, I think that in general, we don't implement things. We distribute money.
Yeah, I know,
So if-
that's what I was,
So
yeah.
if you get programs that we can fund, of course, that's what we'll be doing with the money.
Because especially, we're seeing federal government cuts,
Oh, yeah.
in the housing,
Yeah.
Section 8 vouchers, all that kind of stuff. So,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Section 8 is, there's a freeze on Section 8. So, at least at the county level. And so,
Yeah.
that's gonna hurt. And so, yeah, so these rental subsidies can't come fast enough.
Yeah.
They're only limited to 6 months though, unfortunately.
6 months,
So
wow.
that's the only downside. Another news, last week, another searing audit came out, this time by Judge Carter's, kind of motion to, have this, audit team audit LASA again. And, it was pretty bad. It was so dire to the point where the consultants had PTSD from just visiting some of the shelters. That was in the report, which was kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, it's stuff that we know, and we've known this for years. But it really adds to the momentum, I think, to create a new county entity and to streamline LASA, which is the motion that Horvath and Barger currently have on the table. The plan came out last week, and thanks Azella from Mitchell staff for sharing that. But the plan is to reduce LASA to bare bones. So HMIS, homeless count, that's what they'll continue to do. And then the new county entity, phase 1, would combine CEOHI and DHS Housing for Health by January 2026. That would then basically create this new county entity. And then phase 2, shortly after that, they would take over LASA employees and take over much of the admin duties of LASA. And then phase 3, they would integrate other departments that deal with homeless services like DPSS and those types of departments. That's the current plan on that motion. Questions there? Yes, Raymond.
Thank you, sir. So the plan for this soon-to-be organization is to eventually have oversight over all the other county organizations providing homeless services in some shape or form.
Yeah, we hope so. I mean, this motion is, they're still on, so the next step, there's going to be another report in 30 days. And so we're still a little bit away from the supervisors actually voting on this. But that would be the idea, is to have this new county entity oversee all homelessness services across the different county departments. Yeah. There's homelessness in DCFS, there's homelessness in, like I said, DPSS, DPH,
That's a challenge and the frustration and, it's left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing and, no one can account for anything and there's no real oversight over what is now becoming the homelessness industrial complex, so to speak.
For sure. And in addition to this, as part of our BIRCH, we're hoping for a homelessness czar at the county level. And so it would be nice to have a czar to oversee. Ultimately, we need a personality like that to kind of be, the person in charge of all this, so that we can have someone that can really lead us into.
And then in theory, the county czar would have other county czars coordinating with the state czar, right?
Yeah.
The information and funds going up and down from state down to counties, counties to municipalities, and then vice versa. Municipalities, county to state. Is there? We don't have a state czar now. Newsom says he is, right?
Well, no, Newsom he had a guy named Jason Elliott who was kind of the czar. I don't know who that person is now, but there was sort of like like Newsom had a guy that was far back in that, like the czar. But I mean, he's kind of letting the counties kind of step up is kind of his, like, from what I'm reading and what I'm hearing him say, is he really wants the counties to really be accountable for all the funding that's coming.
And I think that's smart. But who are the counties talking? Who in Sacramento? I mean, there's no reporting per se, but is the county's coordinating with whom at the state level?
Yeah, so it'll be,
That's the question.
yeah, there is a department that they're reporting into. We actually know some folks at that team. And from all indications, they're gonna be looking at the county performance more closely. And in fact, the county, in all the meetings that we've been to, there is actually a separate section where they talk about this regional plan, the county regional plan. And that's the plan that Newsom's team is gonna really study to make sure that we're on target and are accountable for all the money that we're doing. So this regional plan is what the county is, putting their hat on. Yeah.
So can we promote you for the czar?
I was gonna say, why are you not running the show, dude? Right, I nominate. you.
I like just hanging out here. Yeah. Yeah, so
We don't want to share you, but I mean, you could do a lot
I
of,
think Ron's will agree. Hopefully you agree. We both work for LASA. This change is long overdue.
oh. Like
Yeah.
you can't account for millions of dollars is shameful. And it's embarrassing. And now we're throwing more money. You know, we're doubling the
Yeah.
projected revenues, right? for-
yeah, it's if you even knew what I know, like,
Oh,
it's even
it's-
worse. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
it's,
And so like and then it'll be interesting to see what LA City does. LA City is one half of the LASA equation. So LA City's, I think they're kind of divided. I think the mayor still has, is still wanting to work through LASA, but I think every day that we hear more of this news, it becomes harder and harder to justify working through LASA. So it'll be interesting to see what LASA does. I mean, for what LA City does.
and sort of to belabor this. You mentioned the housing trust that would be overseen by this county now.
The Housing
Or-
Trust is kind of its own entity now, run by a guy named Brian Johnson, who we're in constant communication with now. But yeah, they're kind of this new county agency.
That reports to is overseen by,
The board, which is made up of all 5 supervisors and also council members from LA City, and then we're on the board as well.
John Marriage represents us on that board.
It's very similar to the Metro board makeup.
right, no, because the idea is that this housing trust
Mhm.
will take dollars to build housing or to
Build, preserve.
build, preserve, right? Working with potential developers, provide seed money or whatever that.
Exactly.
But we have our own possible housing trust. We would get money that we might give to our own housing trust if we form it. That's what we're looking at now.
Price to build.
Yeah.
The cost is.
Yeah.
And this is the $880,000 current projection per affordable house, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's not something we wouldn't, yeah, there's ways I think we need to be more creative, to your point. We can't be paying $800,000 a unit to build a house. So, but
Villages, you know?
yeah, the unfortunate thing though is that, there is a lot of labor language that requires La Casa to, which causes that inflated kind of price rate, because we have to use in labor to build these houses.
We don't have to build homes. I mean, to your point, we gotta be creative, right? Tiny villages are, as opposed to, not everyone needs 2,000, 1,500 square feet, right?
Yeah, well, what I like to do in this, before I get to, in the South Bay, there are a lot of what they call naturally occurring affordable housing, called NOAA, that's and what it is mom and pops who don't necessarily charge the market rate, right? And so let's say the market rate is $1,000 for 1 bedroom, and they're charging $1,800. So that's a naturally occurring affordable housing. And so what happens is when these mom and pops sell, they sell to the private equity groups, and then the private equity group starts charging $3,000 for a 1 bedroom.
Or mom and pop pass away and the kids are like, hey.
Yeah, and so one of the things we could do if we had our own affordable housing trust fund is we go out on the open market and buy up these naturally occurring. So it's great because you're not building and all the NIMBYism that comes with building, right? But you're preserving a lot of units, and then you have control over those units now.
But the thinking then is that housing trust then be in the real estate business and the development business.
Yeah.
You're gonna learn more about the housing trust in the next year,
Yeah.
our housing trust.
Yeah. Stacy and
On Friday, the leadership table did approve these top line goals for Measure A. So their goal is to reduce unsheltered homelessness by 30% in 5 years. Increase housing placements by 57%. Right now, they're placing about 20,000 people a year into housing, and so that would go up to 30,000. And then reduction in newly homeless by 20%. So right now, about 65,000 people in the county fall into homelessness every year. So they want to reduce that down to 50,000 people a year. In the South Bay, we're actually ahead of these goals. We've reduced unsheltered homelessness by 15% the past 2 years. We're less than 1,000 unsheltered in our 15 cities. I'm thinking we can probably achieve functional zero in 8 out of 15 cities in 2 to 3 years. So we have a much higher bar that I want to hit than these goals. So they should be fine.
They should give us more money.
One of the things we're advocating hard for is to return more of the Measure A dollars locally, especially in light of the loss of controversy, right? So we're working really closely with the San Gabriel Valley COG and Gateway COG to do this. I want to give a special shout out to the executive director of the Gateway Cities Council of Governments, Hector De La Torre. He is really leading the charge on this. He is going to every single meeting. And I mean, he's going to like 2 or 3 meetings a week, and he is just a workhorse trying to get us more funding. So really want to give him a shout out for doing that. So these are the scenarios in terms of our high and low targets on the different scenario ranges. There's 6 scenarios right now that the county is considering, and the supervisor will have to vote on this. But we can get anywhere from the low of $2.4 million to the high of $3 million.
Let's just say, at the board meeting, you all supported scenario 4. And there was a letter that we were gonna send. We did not send the letter because of the negotiations that are going on right now. And so I just wanted to make sure you understood the context of this. So there are 6 scenarios in the high range and the low range. And Hector and Marissa Creeder from San Gabriel Valley and I have been in constant talking about what would be the best thing to do. Hector also used to be an assemblyman, so he has a lot of contact. He knows Karen Bass, and he also talks to Nithya Raman, who is the other person on the executive committee. And so what we've come up with, and I'll get back to you in a minute, Ronson, is that the county is not gonna, no offense, Jocelyn, the county's not listening to us. The board deputies voted on a scenario that they're recommending gives the county the most money and the city's not very much money. So they're not listening to us, and that's the county deputy. So we are trying to create what we're calling an 88 city strategy, where we get all of the COGs supporting one strategy, including Los Angeles City. And it looks like we're doing very well getting this done. And it's what Ronson is going to explain to you what the 88 city strategy is. And you have to remember that right now they're talking about giving cities $96 million total. You can see the numbers there. And yet, I always like to point this out, the county has an undetailed line item called administration that's $100 million, more for the county administration than for us as cities to do homeless programs. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to say that although you've allocated 96, you can take, there's plenty of money there for you to make cities whole and give us a better deal. And so that's what the 88 city strategy is. And now, Ronson, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, I mean, the strategy is really simple. Just give everyone the high. So we would get 3 million, Gateway would get 7.4 million, Long Beach will get 6. And then so it would increase the $96 million to 102 million, which is, it's just only like what is that, $6 million more? So we're not talking about a lot of money in the grand scheme of $1 billion. So yeah, that's something we would support, is just to give everyone the most. I mean, there should be more direct funding coming back to us anyways. So that's basically it. We're currently getting $2.1 million annually. And just to put that in perspective, it costs about $2 million to run a small shelter, like 20 units.
I mean, when the voters voted for Measure A, they did not vote for all the money to go to administration. They voted for cities and others to get money for students. So that's why we didn't send the letter. We'd like to keep supporting this 88 city strategy. And we're not even sure, frankly, that the supervisors realize what's going on and that they understand that cities are trying to unite together so that we are making everybody whole and the county, everybody can get more money out of this if we work together.
Yeah, and Hector is talking aggressively with LA City representatives like Karen Bass and Nithya Raman to get them on board with this plan. One of the things I want to highlight, and Jocelyn, this might affect you, is that COHI has this plan. And I don't think the supervisors necessarily approved it or anything like that, but they wanted to contract directly with the top 20 cities. So in the Local Solutions Fund in the past, they've contracted with the COGs and then we've kind of allocated out to our cities. But now they want to contract with the top 20. So what this would do is it would poach the top cities from the COG. So it would leave the smaller cities in the lurch. It would reduce the COG funding for us anywhere by $700 to $1.3 million, and that's just us. And so it would reduce some of the other COGs by more. And then it would reduce our ability to regionally respond to the homelessness crisis. And then the minuscule amount of funding that the cities would get directly would not really make a big impact to their homelessness problem. Instead, we really need to focus on increasing funding overall. So this is an issue we're currently dealing with, and we're working with the COGs to, I think in the future, we'll probably want to advocate to see if we can stop COHI from doing this. We're not sure why they've hashed this plan, but it's not good.
Can you define, sorry, top cities?
So top cities by like population. So like I think Inglewood, Bellflower. So so not like Long Beach. I mean, they're included too, but like some of these other top 20.
Our cities are not, I think it's important to say, cities are not complaining about the COGS or the regional effort. And city of Hawthorne, for example, will be affected if the city of Inglewood were to take all of their money. It doesn't make sense because we're addressing this as a regional issue and helping each city so that they don't go into all the other cities too. And we just think COHI is way out of their lane.
You had a question?
Two questions, Rox. You mentioned it costs something million to run a small shelter. What was that number?
2 million.
2 million. What's a small shelter?
Like 20 units. Like Redondo Beach pays $2 million a year.
For their college shelter? Okay, 2 million. Okay, and then one of your slides had the 5-year reduction by 30-odd%. And that number was to get folks off the street into some sort of interim housing. Yeah, the first one.
Yeah.
Reduction in unsheltered, that's a 5-year goal?
Yep.
2030.
Yep, 30% in 5 years.
So what's the impediment? What's the unsheltered impediment? Not enough? Interim short-term housing?
Actually, I don't think so, actually. I don't even think our mixed shelters are wrong. So at the county level, I'm talking about the county level.
Right.
They have a lot of beds, but a lot of them are congregate beds. And if you look at the data in these audits, it's a revolving door in these congregate shelters. So people go in, they leave within 3 months, like half of them, right? So they're not sticky. You want the folks to stay in the.
And that congregate housing has all the wraparound services.
It does. Well,
Supposed to.
Right?
it's supposed to.
Okay, because the reason Redondo Beach has been successful is and that's not considered congregate, is that considered?
It's non-congregate.
Congregate being bunk style, okay, right, so they have individual, right?
Yeah.
And that's a model of success.
Yeah.
In theory, right?
Yeah.
And in practice.
Yes.
Versus the congregate, which is more camping bunk style, right?
Yeah.
So why isn't the Redondo model sort of the default in terms of building those shelters? Because if the problem is we got too much congregate housing, to your point, we don't have the right mix.
Yeah.
Well, we need to pivot to go to the right amount of housing that could, in my mind, improve our numbers, right?
Yep.
I mean, I think in 5 years, we're gonna reduce it by 30%. When the problem is the type of housing, to your point, right?
I think so, and that's something we'll bring up. So the next iteration of this is now, we're gonna talk about how we're gonna achieve this, right? And one of the things I will definitely bring up is that I think in LA County, especially in LA City, I don't think they have the right mix of shelters.
They have property,
Yeah, and they have a lot of beds, but people don't
Right.
stay in the beds.
but and I mentioned this to Supervisor Hahn at the COG we had last week, and I mean, again, the never-ending frustration, I think, is one of the points she made was, we've got a hotel in Norwalk that's gonna have, I don't know, 50 people, right? It's gonna be converted into long-term supportive housing. But the mix right now is the unsheltered homeless. I mean, the focus should be getting those guys off the street, getting them into a facility where they've got the wraparound services.
Yeah,
So if you use the Redondo as a model, that could be the smaller version of what could be a scaled model
yes,
for LA City and LA County, where we own property, where, in theory, you can put up 100 pallet shelters in the next 2 months at a fraction of the cost compared to what we keep trying, because I keep hearing permanent supportive housing. Well, let's,
$800,000 a unit.
yeah, at 800,000, when I can build a pallet, I can go, when we had the meeting with Supervisor Hahn, I went to Amazon, I can get a tiny home
Yeah.
for $8,000.
Yeah, and you're hitting on something that is near and dear to my heart, because there is
So I'm hitting it.
there's a debate, not necessarily in LA County, but there should be a debate in LA County. There's a debate across the country about what municipalities should be focusing on. San Jose is someone I'm following really closely. San Jose is about the same size as the South Bay. And San Jose, what they've decided to do is use all their public money on interim, non-congregate housing. The mayor is, so exactly what you're saying. I actually think that's the right approach.
That's right.
Yeah,
Get them off the street.
Yeah.
They're not
Exactly the
crapping
same
in the
reason.
yards. They got a place to shower. They got a place to hang out. Redondo Beach is a great model. And you can even put these, for the military model, we've put these tiny homes inside of huge warehouses to keep them out of the elements, right? So you got the warehouse, it's air conditioned, you got all these tiny homes inside, you got the big industrial showers, the shower trailers, the shower bathrooms.
Yeah.
And you've got all the wraparound services.
Yeah.
And I just think we, as a county, have got it backwards, to your point, and we are not focused on the right thing, and that, I think 30% in 5 years at how much? When we could put up pallet shelters and other mini shelters in 2 months.
Yeah, I think though, in the county's defense, I think homeless services, the theories are evolving rapidly, right? First you got housing first principles and things like that, but the more we're learning about this crisis, we're learning different things, and so I'm not blaming the county for pivoting about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, to permanent supportive housing, because we do need to build more housing. That's true. But now that we're seeing how expensive it is and how long it takes.
No shit, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The frustration is, really?
Yeah. So now we need to
You know that?
repivot or rethink
It
that.
shouldn't be that hard. It's like, we know this hasn't been working. And I hate to use that old cliche, though, insanity is whatever, but we know that isn't the right methodology.
Yeah.
And every time I go to homeless, we need more permanent supportive housing. Yeah, really?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
great.
but Jackson, let me tell you something.
No,
For
please,
example,
push back.
Hawthorne, for example, no, I'm not pushing back.
No,
Hawthorne,
please.
we were going to do 30 pallet shelter on a Caltrans land,
Right.
right? And we got so much pushback from our own supervisor, from Atlantic School Board, because it was right on the border on 105 and Hawthorne Boulevard exit. And literally, we let go of that plan of building 30 tiny homes, and we only built 12 in our own land that we had, a little piece of land.
What was their reason for pushing back?
What you mean, my boss pushback?
It was your supervisor, well, your staff over there, so.
But that land was interesting though, because there's 3 schools right around it.
Well, but the problem is, look, nowadays, the homeless still camp right there on that
They
exit.
camp next to your street, they camp, and you put them in a pellet.
And they use the parking lot
Yes,
for,
yes.
and you see it every day. But we got pushback from supervisor, because of the Lennox, lobby,
You only have 12.
not only we have
And
12.
where are the other 18 that could have been in this pellet? filter,
Exactly.
right? I mean, it's just,
So
Ollie?
that the situation is,
Ollie? You had a question?
Yes, thanks. I've been following the whole housing, not homeless, because I'm not, certainly have no expertise in homeless, but I've been following the regional housing needs assessment, for decades, really. And what always fascinates me is the state always looks at the supply side. We need more housing, as if housing follows like the argument around potatoes. If you have more of it, then each one will be cheaper. But as we know, building new housing is more expensive than anything. And so doing that doesn't really work in terms of lowering the price. So here we have, you said, Ronson, $2 million for 20 units, right?
Yeah.
It's $100,000 a person. And I want, and see, affordability has the difference between what the labor market pays and what the housing market charges. It doesn't mean the housing market is out of whack. It means that the labor market is out of whack. And we don't do anything to increase the income of people, which would really address the housing shortage. So if $100,000 each, and I have an old statistic, which there are more vacant units in the county of Los Angeles than there are homeless people. And this gets to, I think Oakland did a guaranteed annual income sort of thing, which does address the demand side, give people more money to demand and you, boom, you take care of it. So this is not exactly cheap, I would think, $100,000 a person. Is anybody looking at what happens when you give money to people, homeless people, to go and some guidance in terms of how you would house them, where they would go in the market to do this and that? I just want to raise the issue that maybe it's in part a demand side as much as a supply side.
And the thing, it's a lot of developers do not want to build affordable housing. They do not want to build affordable housing. They want to build market rate housing. Most of our cities over here in South Bay, they don't want to build no
Yes.
affordable housing.
And the way they get it is through adding density, which destroys the quality of
Exactly.
life.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. There's no mobility strategy that goes with that. They build density and then we all suffer. I'm saying that if you give people enough money, they can afford market rate housing.
Well, that's
100,000 gets it done in a year.
Yeah.
So Ronson.
next step after we get them off the streets into.
Under action.
Exactly.
You want direction and funding proposals?
No, I think right now, things are just moving so fast. It would be kind of, it would just.
I think, I think what we're asking for is we're working on this 88 city coalition. And it is too fluid for us to say, this is what we want. But your direction, your agreement that we should continue working this way. We're trying to get the most money. We're trying to get the attention of the supervisors that the 88 cities are working together.
Right.
And so if we just get your agreement that that's the direction we should follow.
I think so. I'd really like to have Ronson maybe have some suggestions on where he would like us to kind of go and to focus our, ideals and where we want to go with this. Because to me, he's kind of bizarre anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, and also I think one of the suggestions, Ron said, is maybe the states can force Caltrans to give those lands to the cities to build tiny homes or even affordable housing.
Who owns is that your property? Redondo Beach property where you have your?
Former public works yard.
Yeah.
They're very upset about that.
I see, yeah.
That's a great model. I mean, it makes, yeah.
But I have to tell you, some of my own council members, they don't want affordable housing.
Yeah, I think that's the
They don't.
long-term goal. I mean, the goal right now is to get them off the streets and get them the help.
Yeah.
And the wraparound services that, I think there's a model that could be scaled. But anyway, sorry, you know where I stand.
Yeah.
Okay.
What, Jay? I just wonder, Justin, I don't know if anybody from the supervisor's office, either supervisor's office could let us know what would be the most effective for us to do to kind of advance the city's interest in this regard. Because at the board meeting, we contemplated a letter being sent on behalf of the COG stating that the other COGs were joining us, joining in the letter, but agreed to the same position. Well, do you know whether the supervisor Mitchell is hearing the cities on this and or how we can most effectively convey our position on it?
She will be hearing what happens at these meetings through me, so you have that. And then I'll talk to her deputy, I know Ronson knows Isela, about sort of the nitty gritty and details of what we're talking about today.
Okay,
Yeah,
and then,
and we're talking to Stella on tomorrow, actually. So.
Right.
okay, because yeah, at the board meeting, we saw charts up showing the real difference in terms of income to the cities or revenue to the cities. Taking up this plan versus still, LA's proportion, city of LA's proportion would still be huge, but it'd be us feeling the largest effect of changing, choosing one of these options,
Yeah. Yeah.
option 4 rather than option 1.
There's two issues for the supervisors. One is this option. The second is picking off the larger cities, which is gonna leave more money for administration because they're gonna have to hire up instead of using the COG. I mean, it's just a crazy way of going. Not efficient.
And then lastly, if you guys, based on the projected $3 million we hopefully will get from Measure A, if there's anything else your cities need, your city manager should know this already, but yeah, they should be giving me some funding proposals by March 19th, so that we can evaluate them.
Okay, thanks. Jackie?
A little bit on homelessness, huh? Okay, next is the legislative matrix, and we only have a few bills on there, but we'll talk about anything on that.
So AB is recommending a support for AB 62, which will, upon allocation by the legislature, create the California Disaster Assistance Act, like financial assistance to
We'll do that meeting on
local
Wednesday.
agencies,
Yeah, Wednesday.
CBOs, and individual for disaster-related expenses. So the initial language of the bill, I think, was like $1,500 for individuals, just help out with those kind of immediate needs following a disaster. Help make sure people have somewhere to go, that sort of stuff. It would be everything, all of the current disasters. So landslides are not yet included in that, but fires, earthquakes, floods, extreme heat events, those types of things. So it seems like this is kind of stemming from the fires that we had earlier in the year.
And I just want to bring your attention to the fact that the actions you're taking today, final, because this is in March, because of the General Assembly, this steering committee acts as the board. It's not a recommendation to the board, it is the action, and then we report it out to the board.
Yeah, so that's the only bill to add today. There are a few more that are I have to do a little research on that we'll bring back next month, but I think we'll see a much more limited legislative portfolio this year because both the Senate and the Assembly members have been limited in how many bills they can each introduce this session. So I think it was previously unlimited in the Assembly, and now it's 40. And I think the Senate can only do 35 this year. So they will be much more particular with their bills that they ultimately introduce. So there's a lot of spot bills right now.
So is there a motion to support AB 262?
I move.
Second.
We have go ahead.
Sorry, who was the motion? Any opposition? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you.
And we also have the next legislative briefing, which is April 10th. We need questions for the legislators, so please send in your questions. Obviously, we have a lot on our mind. We could talk about, who in the state is the homeless or whatever, but that we can get a better briefing if we ask them questions first. So, and please plan to attend. That's 9 o'clock in the morning here. Next is April board meeting. And on the April board meeting, obviously, we're probably going to have an update on where we are with homelessness. We better have the purchase agreement for the SBFN. It is climate month, and so I have asked Wally to continue his series on climate and what it means for it's Earth Month, excuse me, not climate. And then,
I was like,
Earth
wait,
Month, yeah.
I didn't know it was climate month.
And then we have all, the COG has been sending David to the CalCOG, California Council of Governments Leadership Academy. It's been I think it's a year program.
No, like 6 or 9, it started in September.
Seemed like
It
forever.
felt like a long time.
Yeah, it seemed like forever, but one of the reasons I did go to Sacramento last week is because David graduated. And so we would like to hear from David about his experience and lessons learned, and I thought it would be helpful for you to hear, because we do pay for CalCOG, and we are a member of that, and the president of CalCOG is actually Britt Huff right now. So anyway, so David will also be on to give a presentation. Which we're in the process of inviting Nathan Hoffman. I think I'm trying to get the right person to ask. We've invited Ryan Johnson. Ryan Johnson is the head of the, as Ronson said, he's the head of the new agency, La Casa, and now he has, I think now has 2 employees and a consultant. So he is so busy, he doesn't know which end is up. And so we've given him a couple of dates to come, and I don't know when he'll be able to come. And then I haven't invited Mayor Bass, but we could, if you would like, I can, I think you asked me to do that, so we could still do that.
Yes.
After the General Assembly, we were going to set the date for a tour of the Harbor UCLA facilities. And if there's anything else you would like to see, please let me know. So that's where we are. If you have other ideas for speakers or tours or anything for the board meetings, please let me know.
Nothing's off the plate, so
Right.
we'll consider whatever you want to present.
Right. Okay, so then we'll move on to the employee manual. Every year, the state, somehow they can get 40 and 35 bills because they're always doing something. And so they always change parts of what we need to change in the employee manual. So this is the update for 2025, and Kim is going to present.
Yes, and actually, you were handed this memo that just summarizes all of the sections that were revised. I have to apologize. I think it didn't actually make it out to you in advance, but were able to actually see the red line of the document, even though it's very long. You know what, before I do that though, I did want to introduce.
Oh,
Christina Martinez.
I've been wanting to do that, but I keep forgetting.
She's one of our new administrative staff, and she does support finance and as well as the front and all of our activities. So welcome. She's in here today to hear how we, okay. So then just to walk down the memo, most of the revisions that were done were revisions or clarifications, as well as additional or new laws were added. It was reviewed by BBK, which is our attorney, and they're the ones that monitor, right, whatever's going to be new in state law. And so just a couple of things. I think I'm just you have a full list here, but I think I'm just gonna pick out some of them to during your.
Or do we should be?
Yeah, it's handed out. The other thing you have, if you want, there is a full, Natalie made a full copy. There's 3 of them that are out on the table, if you wanted to look at those also. So the first one is, was just moving into the right section. But then we looked at like timekeeping requirements, just again, clarification, so that employees know how they're supposed to be keeping track of their hours. We had, some revisions around what exempt employees are and what flex scheduling is, and like our hours of operation were updated. Personnel records, language that helps us secure or makes it clear what employee rights are regarding those records. There was quite a few revisions on sick leave, and a lot of this had to do with like accrual of sick leave, and when changes to sick leave allotted hours, like there was some confusion whether it was annual hours or what period of time. And then the attorney did add some additional language in there to the employees knew, like, for example, if they were late coming into the office, but they were using sick leave for that they weren't penalized for coming in late that day. So it's just like a lot of clarification. We did add a section on artificial intelligence. That's a new section. So just to address to make sure it's being used correctly in line with our organization and our goals. Holiday was clarification. There was some confusion with staff whether holidays could actually be rolled over into the next year, and that's not okay. They're supposed to be that year. Management leave, again, clarifications and revisions. Life insurance, that was changed to reflect our current levels of life insurance, which as you get older, there's not as much coverage of life insurance. We are looking into maybe a different policy that would, because we do have some older staff, to see if we can get better coverage for the staff, but we added the language that actually reflects our current policies. Personnel leave, and this had to do with accrued sick, that accrued sick. There was a lot of sections related to, and this is state law, related to domestic violence. And then we also referenced our own policy because we approved a emergent, I think what it's called. What is our violence prevention? It's like there's so many words that deal with violence. We added language into the manual that refers to that policy. And then again, like drugs and alcohol those are also state laws that went into effect. But I don't know if there was specific things. You can see I listed what it was, a little definition of what was changed. And then you have the section and the actual page number if you wanted to refer to the actual page number in the document. I don't know if you got it.
Any questions?
And then we are asking you to approve that.
This has been gleaned by our,
The attorneys,
staff.
yes.
okay, hearing no questions, motion to approve,
I'm sorry,
go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm going through the various leaves.
Sure.
Does the sick leave carry over? And what ultimately?
Sick leave does carry over, but it caps. And then, but it is not paid out when you leave service.
Okay.
Yes.
Back. Opposition? Any attention? Thank you, everybody. Office space update.
Okay.
Okay.
David has the
This is really, we need your attention on this. This is really important stuff. We have been, you can hear what's happening with our program. Ronson himself looks like he's going to be bringing in the need for more staff. Have a lot of staff here. We're sort of falling all over each other here. And so that we're moving into a new space. We looked at the new space. And the problem we're having, of course, is accommodating a boardroom that's bigger than this, which is what we used to have. We used to have a very big boardroom and an office space. And so we have been a little worried about the fact that our new space is we're gonna come in and it's gonna be crowded right away. And so we asked our realtor, our real estate person, two different questions. One was, can you tell us what's around? Maybe we should look at a whole new site. And there was nothing that he found that was at this kind of pricing. The amount of
or larger space.
Then we asked him, what about the building we're in, the one we're moving to, because we are going to move out of here. So what about that one? And they did find space, and the space is directly underneath the space that we are planning to lease. And so we wanted to present that to you today because it does affect the entire negotiation process and how we will proceed. And we need to actually make decisions because we have to be out of here by June 30th. So we're really against it. So
Yeah, I was just gonna say, this is actually just bullet points. I think that reflects what Jackie just said. We think that we're moving into a larger space and taking what we're calling the second floor, which is what most of you have seen. But we're thinking that
just
first two,
just
which I was
Rodney.
hoping that two of you.
No, just Rodney.
Trust Rodney.
Sorry about that. But we're feeling like it's maybe just meets our current staffing needs and we continue to bring on programs, I think what's also important to know is the type of program that we are bringing on, right? Which is going to sometimes cause, like, right now we have like a big open area and we still are proposing a big open area and we'll get to that. But we're finding that that staff, as they grow in program, they need to have like a separate door space to go in and have conversations, right? And to have meetings in more than just one Zoom room, for example. We are planning on bringing in more funding, like through Measure A. You've been hearing me talk about 3 new programs that are going to start in spring that we already have under contract that are getting ready to start, that are going to require staffing. And then we have 3 grants that are out there. And then when we looked at the proposed space that the space that we were planning on taking on the 2nd floor, comparing it to what we were just before we moved into this building, right? Not that temporary space, but when we were on Western.
I don't know how many of you know Western.
Remember that?
Yeah.
That space was actually larger. Like, we had a larger space, and of course we had the boardroom, but even like the office space was larger. And we had a lot less employees and we had a lot less program funding coming in. So, and then we did do an analysis to make sure that, because of course this would be an increased monthly amount, right? For increased annual amount. What would that look like over, I did current year +4 projections so that I could get a sense of like, what do I know is coming in? It's hard to do past that amount of time, right? And could we accommodate this? Okay, so then and the answer was yes. So this is the current configuration of the 2nd floor that has the boardroom in it. It does have, a lot of has more offices than we currently have, and it does have that open space as a small break area that David, had the cursor up there.
And I think you should, this is one of the things that I don't like. It's got an entrance like one of these doors. It's like not very nice entrance.
Right. Okay, so then go to slide.
I was gonna show you the entrance.
Oh, yeah, the entrance, David, you wanted to show where you would come in with the cursor right there. It's where the entrance is, and it enters into the hallway. Okay, so then the next slide is, this is the proposed additional space, which is actually on the 1st floor, but because of the way that parking lot is, you can enter at ground level on the 2nd floor and you can enter at ground level on the 1st floor.
You kind of, okay, so over here, I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, you got it.
This is kind of the main, it feels like you're entering at ground level on both sides.
Right.
But where you enter over here is technically not the ground floor.
A foyer.
The parking lot kind of goes down here off to the side, and then there's a ground floor there. So that's where the 2nd space that we're talking
Yeah.
about is.
And I'm calling it floor 1 and floor 2, even though they both enter into it. So you would, David, you want to show them where they would enter? Where you are? See it? Oh, no, right there. So the cursor go up.
To the right, up top.
Right there. So you would enter, and it's actually like 2 glass doors like we currently have right from the parking lot. It would go into a reception that's already, this space is actually already built out. And with new carpet and fixtures and everything, we would only propose minor tenant changes. So that reception area is actually already there, as well as those offices and conference rooms. More offices, you can see they have additional kitchen. What they also have, which you can't see here because I hid it, is that they have 2 offices built out where that counter is that would have come into the room. And I said, what we would do is take out those offices. It would be a very large boardroom that you could have all kinds of different events into. Like when we have the volunteer reception, we can actually bring all the volunteers and their guests down, eat, have the elected officials around.
It would be not quite twice the size of this, but it would be smaller than the one we had on Western. Still would be smaller than that.
Yeah. I would propose to put like a counter in right there and keep that wall. And then, but you could have other events, like we could maybe even rent the room out more to our partners, for example. They could have maybe some community events. So we could maybe bring in additional trainings, revenue into the organization. And you want to go to the next slide. And so then I said, okay, well, what does it look like then if we reconfigured the 2nd floor? because now we won't have the boardroom and we would put additional offices and we would extend the break area. I'd actually take out that storage cabinet also. And those would be the offices. And what's nice about this is it would also allow for this open area where people could meet. I probably would just put like rounds in there, but you could put cubicles as you start to grow. You could do that, which is what we had also at Western. But some of the offices are larger. I mean, we can play with this, right? But a lot of the teams like to work in those larger offices. So like you have the homeless services team, like they all want to come together. You have the outreach team and then they have volunteers and they need the workspace. So there's several large rooms here where teams can work together.
And the reason why this is such a critical issue right now, as you can see, is the second floor that we're already going to lease either has a boardroom or doesn't have a. And if we don't make up our mind now, then we can't get the tenant improvements that would come with the.
Right.
What is the access for between the two offices?
And that's, yeah.
Yeah,
And one, is that the next one?
Drive around.
No, there's actually two staircases.
Okay, so, okay, you want to tell?
See the stairs on the first floor? That's an outside staircase that actually connects to the stair. It says stairs there. No, down. Or those stairs actually go. So we have an exterior staircase that we locked and our very own. And then you also can go out and into the hallway and there's stairs down.
Right.
So, and then there's an elevator. Right. Well,
Right. Yeah, there's elevator,
but
there's,
they're directly, one is directly over the other. That's why I thought the stairs were good. I asked them to put that upside down because that's how it will fit underneath this one.
and so that would be.
And,
Other thing-
and the boardroom, is bigger than this room, right?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes, much,
You'll see in a second.
much bigger. I think it's like, I can't,
15.
oh yeah, I have it on the
Yeah, you
next
have it on
slide.
the next slide.
I have it on the next slide. Go ahead, David.
So I'm sorry, can you go back to that slide? So the consideration of adding the first floor gives us a bigger boardroom. What else is there around there that? Are all the offices on the second floor now and just the boardroom on the
No,
first?
there would be, go back to the,
You would still have.
There you go.
Our marked as offices
Right.
on the bottom floor. But they could be used for storage in the meantime, they're flexible use.
or maybe
So there's-
sublease.
Conference room or
So
something.
the first, if you can go back to the first,
Mhm.
other slide, okay. Does that,
You mean the
the side by side one,
side by side? Mhm.
please, thank you. So does that envision the additional growth that we expect
Yes,
based on additional programs?
yes.
Okay, so then all the offices are on the second floor. The first floor has a boardroom and then a bunch of space we could figure out what we're gonna do with later.
You could still keep those offices. So there's several offices. There's one,
Build out
2,
with
3,
offices.
4. There's
Yes.
4 offices down there plus a conference room. So.
And right now we do, lease to, or we have SBACC meetings here. Our fiber, the new owner of the fiber is actually Canadian and has asked us about whether to use, whether he could use our offices. So we would try to lease like to people like that. Might be out of the area that could use our offices.
Right.
So how much additional square footage are you talking about by picking up the?
Why don't we just skip
Okay.
to those comparisons?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. So, so on the slide, you have that's our current space, right? Without expansion. We did go ahead and put Western, so you could just get a sense of what that was. So the second floor only, which is what we had started with, is 6,705 square feet. Has the 13 offices. It has 1 small conference room. The reception is off the main hall. The boardroom is that 1,170, and then that's the rent. And that rent doesn't include like 3 months or, 3% increase over time, but that was just like a starting point. And then, if we had the second floor without the boardroom, of course, the numbers are the same, but then we added the first floor numbers, and that would add an additional 3,855 square feet. It has 4 offices, it has 1 conference room, and that's what I was proposing, right? But we could do something different. The parking lot, the entrance is off the parking lot. The boardroom size, you can see, is significantly larger. It's like 300 square feet, 400 square feet larger. And then that's the monthly price right there. And then the total of the two is the combined on the right.
Let's go back to the benefit slide and then we'll go on.
Yeah, so go
Back to
back
the
one
slide.
to the benefits. Okay. So so the idea was that it would accommodate the current staff plus anticipated growth, which was what your question was. There's more,
I'm sorry for no,
sure.
but the slide you showed us with the projected second floor has those additional spaces already, right?
Right,
It's empty right now.
right,
We have to build it out.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
okay.
right.
Without the first floor,
Right,
the plan calls for that expected growth,
Correct.
well.
right? The second floor.
The second
you don't
floor,
Put the boardroom.
if you don't put the boardroom in there,
No, before before this additional properties came into play,
right?
wasn't there, how many offices did we propose?
That was there
13.
was 13.
So so we still have the plan to have 3 more offices than we currently have,
Right.
right? Before the new proposal.
Right, that's correct. That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, go back to
Our
the,
concern
Yeah,
is that isn't gonna be enough.
right, right.
I'm 50.
So, so the boardroom also, or direct street, we already talked about that. The boardroom will allow for multiple uses, which we just discussed also. Possible rental space, which we think that we could do, like some of those offices downstairs, which we might be able to bring in, partner organizations, for example. Quiet to work environment, room to, store our materials, which is like a huge deal.
We have a real storage issue.
Yeah, because I don't know if you've been able to walk into that workroom, but to try to have volunteers and assemble for events, because we do over 100 events a year, right? Tabling. That becomes very crowded. And then one of the other things is we could stagger any improvements to the 2 spaces so that we could move in to maybe like the bottom and finish out the top. And then, or vice versa, right? If we wanted to do that. I think the other thing that's missing from here that actually David had said is that every time we go to do a move, when we get in there and within like a year or 2, we need more space. And then we're trying to sort of like juggle, right? How can we bring in more space? And then that costs, if we do that, it costs our organization money, right? So if we went ahead and just did the second floor only, and when, Ronson brings in that additional program, the housing trust starts. All of these, if we were to get a nonprofit or something, now we have all of these other programs. Now we don't fit. And so now we're going to be talking to the landlord about expansion, and that's going to cost us because then those build outs cost us money. So I thought that was a good point that David made.
What is the lease on this? Well, that's what, okay.
So go back to there you go. Oh, you want this one? So that would be the bottom line right there is the monthly lease cost.
No, I know, but I mean.
Oh, lease term.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Let's go on.
Okay, so, so this just supports, yeah, go, should I go right to Britt's question?
No, that's.
Okay, all right. So, so we did the analysis to make sure that we could afford it, which I discussed a little bit. Those projections included 3% increases for like our expenses, our staffing, understanding that as benefits, all of those things. It did look at our operational costs, and I did go ahead and apply a 3% on those as well. I did build in attorney fees separate. I took out things that were like a grant programmed dependent, right? Because I can't project those into the next year. But I was able to, we've got a lot of contracts right now that are multi-year contracts, which I think I have on there too. And probably 4 or 5 of our contracts right now that are large contracts are multi-year contracts that take us into 3, almost 4 years from now. And so I was able to assess what that amount was, as well as what is likely going to continue, right? Because like, for example, West Basin, who is almost it's like $170,000 contract. I do have to renew it every year, but it's been, I don't know, 10 years that I've had that contract. I don't have any reason to not think I'm going to be able to do it for another 10 years. So that was the projections that we did. Let's see, total rental. So the other thing I thought is, okay, well, how does this compare to our budget, right? Because the size of our organization and how much space we need really depends on what are we doing, right? And so when we were in Western in 2018, our rent was 6% of our budget. Our current location, it would be 2%. And if we had the additional space, we're only talking about 3% of our budget. And that's based on our current budget. That's not our increased budget or any new contracts or anything like that we would be bringing in. And this is again, just a reminder that those were high estimates because we will get free rent. Right now, the current proposal before us for just the second floor would be 6 months free rent. We would assume that we would probably get 6 months free rent also for the first floor if we did them both together.
And the 17,000 doesn't take into account the free rent.
Right, it doesn't not take into, it's like a straight figure. The other thing that it could go down is if the building is more efficient, for example, because that built in like your light, electricity and things like that, and that could go down, and we are going to cap it. So it takes into the cap and not what might be lower. And then the other thing is we could look at maybe a 7-year lease. The building owner sort of proposed this. And so I'd like to know what you guys think, if I can get a better deal for us, if we did a 7-year lease compared to a 5-year lease. The other thing that we could talk to them about is maybe we do 5-year lease on one, like the second floor, right? And then maybe, 7-year lease maybe on the second floor, and then maybe on the smaller space, we just do a 5-year lease. So we could look at maybe what that might look like. And then I definitely think we could get further tenant improvements if we were bringing more space, because we become they like us more, right? Because we pay more. So I'd like to hear back from you specifically also on that 5 versus 7 years. And
Is there another slide?
I think that's it.
Basically, it's an increase of 6,000 a month.
Correct.
So it would be
$78,000.
helpful, I would think, to firm up the sharing, in other words, we would be renting that office space to the dark fiber.
Well, if we can,
Not necessarily.
I can't promise that. I can say that they've asked about it in the past.
But I mean, that would be an option we could look
Right.
into, I would think, until, because otherwise we got all this space, we're paying a lot for it. Getting a couple of people in there in the lower office there or something until we need it. I think.
We could start, we could send out.
What's the parking like around? Is there enough for board members to be able to
Yes.
zip
There's
in?
plenty of parking, and the kind of the security portion of that parking lot is that for the ladies, there's actually ingress and egress next to the parking lot, so they can park their cars right where they enter and exit, especially for the board meeting at night. And they do have private security.
And that's a pretty safe area.
Oh,
Yeah.
Great, guys.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, so a couple of questions. First is the current rent versus the new rent. The new rent is about a 50% increase over the current, which you'd also mentioned 3% of budget versus 2% of budget. What is your philosophy and capacity for remote work within your staffing? Number one. And number two, have you looked, this assumes that funding is going to keep going in the upward direction. Are you looking at any funding cuts down the road that might impact the performance of this, this overall equation?
Yeah, so a couple things. One is we have always had telework. So we definitely have a telework policy. We have our employees come into the office. Most of our employees come into the office 2 days a week. We have some staff that come in every single day.
You're required to come in 2 days.
Yeah. And then there's some days that we require, like once a month, we have an all staff meeting where the entire staff comes in and works together. What we're seeing a lot of times with the way the employees are working is when they come in, it's usually like their teams, they all come in together. We have some days that are extremely crowded and some days that aren't as much. So we do that. We are also finding that we have more and more volunteers that want to join our team. And so we're also looking at ways that we could accommodate them, as well as we want to continue to utilize fellows. And not only are they inexpensive for staffing, they're fantastically skilled. And then, and it's nice to help develop sort of that next, generation that can help, support our programs and our goals. So there's that piece of it, but we do telework, and I forgot what your second part of the question.
The funding for
Oh,
The funding.
Yeah, because we were, there's a lot of discussion about the federal government cutting funding, right? And so right now, our programs are not funded with federal funds. So that's one. I have been talking in the energy field about their outlook for ongoing funding, and a lot of the programs that we don't have that are getting ready to start, they have already looked at what those potential cuts might look like. So we haven't even calculated any of that. We didn't need to calculate any of those cuts, into our program because we already we're whole. I don't know. Homeless services sounds like, Ronson, you're going to have funding well into future years, and you don't expect any cuts to that, right? I mean, right.
Yeah, people keep taxing themselves.
Right. And then even our transportation, which would be our other we have basically like three big funding parts. We have like energy or environmental programs, we have the homeless services, and then we have like transportation, housing, land use related funding that's kind of tied together. I don't see those being cut either. Actually, over the last few years, we've continued to grow those programs as well. So it doesn't feel like we're going to, next 3 or 4 years, I don't see us, having cuts. We also, I think because of our reputation, we tend to be the organization that agencies come to implement programs. I'm getting calls quite often about new programs, and I think that we get things done. We know how to get things done. So, and we're probably, I would say we're understaffed right now to even do the things that we need to do. We're going to need to bring on more staff.
Okay, thank you. One more question. You mentioned the possibility of subleasing some of the offices. Have you put a number to that? What that might look like?
I would have to divide, I would say it would be the square footage of that office space. And then I would just apply our, I think last time we did this, we applied the rent and then we added an additional fee for using like our photocopy machine in our kitchen and things like that. So I don't know what that number would be yet, but I would make sure that we cover like our. Yeah, yeah. I would,
Right now, if an agency wants to rent the boardroom for an hour, it's $50 an hour, which I think is a deal at the end of the day. And so I think if it was a more permanent rental kind of thing, we'd true up those numbers a little bit to make it more reflective of.
Okay, thank you.
Right. The other thing is I would want to make sure that we didn't make this decision based on whether we can get them to come to, another agency to rent or not, because that's sort of what messed us up with this space, right? I remember I was on vacation in Arizona, sitting by the pool, trying to negotiate with the county actually to rent the space, that we weren't able to get, where they now have that office. And in hindsight, we probably should have done that, right? But we didn't know because we were just coming out of the pandemic, so we had no way of knowing.
Yeah. But I think it's important to know that I don't want to, and like Kim is saying, when we moved in here, we talked about, at that time, Janice Hahn renting space here. She was pretty interested for a while, but then if Supervisor Mitchell wants to rent space with us, we would love it. those are the kinds of things we would like to talk to the Clean Power Alliance. There's a
Right.
lot of other agencies. And at that time, we did not find people that finally signed on the dotted line. So we will put the feelers out again, but we can't promise that that will happen.
Sure, I understand.
So to
Yeah.
Kim's point, though, we can't forestall this on a comeback to say, well, so-and-so is
Right.
coming to rent and so-and-so.
Sure.
What we did do when we were first considering this was, one, we looked at the space. And we looked at because the board and the steering, we're only here once a month. Okay, but these employees that we have that work for us are here every day. So we had to make sure that if you've been here, we've got a lot of employees with desks in the hallways. And don't even have an office. We have supply rooms that are kind of getting full. There's also some talk about construction of a housing project where that's gonna take some of our space. It'll cause parking issues. And when we looked at this comparison, and what I see is that we're only looking at, $5,000-6,000 a month increase. But if you look at the combined total square feet, we're going from 4,459 to 1056. Okay, so what that does is it helps our employees have space. The top floor is empty, it's vacant. They can create whatever office spaces they need. They can create it into a model that works for everybody. If we take that second floor, it's below, and again, there's some space there that we can put employees in. It's a much larger room that, say we wanted to have a legislative briefing there, it would be big enough to hold everybody.
Right.
Great.
And then the restrooms, we don't have to walk 100 miles with a key to
Most
the
important thing.
restrooms.
Got locked house.
Restrooms are right next to the bottom floor office space.
No key.
And you don't need a key or anything, you just go.
Do you have room for a temporary pickleball court?
We do have a temporary spot for cigar smoking and scotch drinking on the balcony.
There you go.
Now,
Sold.
yeah, the one thing, I mean, I always bring this up. We like having the boardroom where we are. But when we became a COG, we didn't have space. And we would go to the chairs. If the chair person became the chair, we went to their city for a year. And that's where we had the boardrooms. And that, obviously, if we didn't have a boardroom, we wouldn't have that. The problem with that now is that our steering committee is getting a lot of attendance. So we still need a pretty big room anyway, but.
Committee meetings too, are getting a lot of tenants.
Yeah, our committee meetings. So that's the alternative. The alternative is to forget the boardroom altogether and just use cities. But then we have a lot of caring things.
So Ray, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I remember the discussion early on. That's when I started coming to these meetings frequently. And, yes, you said, hey, COG, where do you guys want to work? You're here every day. COG came back and said, hey, second floor. We're good with that. That's great. We're good. We're increasing by 2,000 square feet, bigger board, balcony, hanging out area. You and Henderson can smoke your cigars in the whole 9 yards, right? Everything was great. Full steam ahead. Now it's like, all right, well, if we push a little more, we can add 4,000 more square feet. It sounds to me like a want versus a need. It kind of reminds me when you house hunt. You go, okay, I could live in 1,500 square feet, but man, if I get 3,000, then what do you end up doing? You end up growing into that house. You buy more crap you don't necessarily need. I'm speaking from relatively recent experience. And so here, I mean, we're already going from 10 offices to 13. We've got remote working. I don't necessarily see, it's a nice to have, but $6,000 more a month with a hope of maybe getting some tenants to help underwrite this. I'd feel more comfortable. I knew that, tenants were renting to offset that 6,000 as opposed to that coming out of the COG budget. I just don't, everything was a week ago, everyone was happy with this. You guys are 2,000 more square feet. Now we want to increase that 2,000 to thousand more.
I think that,
Yeah, and
yeah,
I guess I don't understand,
Yeah, yeah.
what is the impetus to say, we have to have this now?
Wally's got his hand up.
Right, Wally.
Talking then.
The tipping point is Ronson bringing in this incredible amount of money. I mean, that's not accommodated, that was not accommodated.
Yeah, we didn't think about it.
Conversations we had.
No, yeah.
And the idea there is if it doesn't happen, you can throw Ronson under the bus.
Right, I mean, but the point is just because you have more money coming in, doesn't mean you need to
No,
spend it.
but it is
Right.
tied. We need, so just remember our budget, 80% of our budget is tied to program, right?
Right.
So when we're bringing in additional program, we have to bring staff because we don't get that budget.
Going from 10 to 13 offices.
Yeah.
Right? So does that not?
We have,
More points.
oh, yeah.
Because I don't work here very often. I mostly, but I come in on, anyway, it doesn't matter. I was here and I was working at that little conference room up there. And the staff out in the hallway where their desks are had such a cacophony of noise. I absolutely couldn't handle it. So the point being that this isn't working that well, whatever we might have said previously. It doesn't.
No, but this isn't second floor.
Yep. But
On the proposal now.
The third thing is that what we know from rats in a maze is when there's not enough space, they turn on each other. And I think our employee happiness is always sort of teetering on, this is way crowded and I'm gonna go kill somebody. I feel that way. So I'm just adding these things.
Okay, well,
Because we're adding staff with.
yeah, we are gonna, what happened was, and the reason why we actually asked the real estate agent is we started thinking about, are we doing the same thing we did when we came here? Which we didn't get enough space initially. And so we don't, like here, and I know here we're not staying, we don't have storage, we don't have space, we have people that are congregated. We really are all over each other here. So we go to the other space and we're thinking, oh my gosh, well, if you just figure out the configuration on the second floor, it really isn't enough space for any kind of growth, which we know is coming because it's in the Ronson's money is coming from the ballot. So theoretically, it should actually happen. But so our concern is that I think we didn't get enough on the second floor, that it really isn't enough even for today. And then the boardroom, the board has always said that this is too small. And we think that, that increasing it by 200 square feet or less than 200 square feet is really not going to do it. That's, if we're moving, let's move and make it the boardroom that really can accommodate a lot of things that we need. And then if you say right now that we should move forward, I will go immediately to the new owners and we'll talk to Supervisor Mitchell. We'll talk to everybody about whether they have any use for other offices and we'll do our very best to try to see what we can.
And when I'm looking at the percentage, it's not bad.
Oh,
3% is not of total budget is not bad at all. So and then it's only increasing basically by 1%.
And I have to tell you, I have been really concerned about this. I've been concerned that we're buying too little and I've been concerned that we're asking for. And so I asked staff to really, prove to me that this makes sense. Because I don't want to overcommit us. I think that would be the worst thing we can do. But we think we can really do this.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, if people are only coming in here 2 days a week, are they not able to share offices so that one person is in there
It's
for
not
2
as
days?
easy. Like, for example, this week I'm here every day because of
Right.
meeting needs and that sort of thing.
No, I know,
So,
but I mean, I'm talking some of the lower level staff.
some of them actually like to be here more because they're just out of college, so they
Right.
like that kind of work, learn how to work in a workplace sort of thing. For me, as being here for 9 years, I'm happy to work from home when I can. I don't need that in office space as much, but it was not just one or two. I mean, a lot of our Civic Spark fellows in particular,
Right.
they really look to the office as part of their learning process of their programming, getting that kind of in-office.
And we have a lot of staff, like we have 20, I think we have 20 staff, plus then we have 2 fellows and we have volunteers. So we have a lot of staff. So even if you're coming in 2 days a week, there's a lot of people here.
But
And then
the
if you have
answer is
meetings,
That they're not sharing offices. If they're not here.
we are sharing offices also right now. That they definitely are doing that, but an example was, I think Ronson needed to was blaming Bronson. Bronson needed to do like a meeting, I think, or something. I wasn't here that day. And then we have a Zoom room where people are actually working in that room, having Zoom, or it's also where our GIS software is, because we share our GIS software, building maps for our General Assembly. And then the conference room had something going on, and the small conference room had an outside meeting. This room had an outside meeting. All of the other offices were doubled up, and there was people all working in the middle. So there was like no place. Ronson had to keep bouncing back and forth between the offices.
I would think something like Zoom meetings, you could just be at home for that, you know.
No, but you have to be in.
But if you're in the office, yeah, you can't be at home. You can't schedule them to always be when you're working at home.
So are we hearing now that the 2,000 additional square feet that we were moving towards no longer can accommodate the 20-something people that we're planning for?
Right. I think, yes.
Potential.
I think that's true.
What is the potential increase? Like, I'm having a tough time wrapping my brain around this because remember, I have a Florida education. So I'm like, what's the percent, what's the potential increase? Personnel. So right now we're 20-something.
Right.
Remember, we're going
So-
from 10 current officers to 13.
So, we're gonna probably have 3 for homeless services, we think. And then, I'm gonna need at least 2, probably for the energy programs. So we're already looking at 5. And then ideally, we would bring on, our Civic Spark fellows to continue to help, like with, outreach, and also maybe with Colleen's work. So we could be looking at like 7 additional staff in the next.
What does that mean in terms of offices?
So if you could, so,
You know, because at the end of the day, we're already plussing 3, right? And
right,
were those anticipated? I mean,
We were always anticipating hoteling.
pardon me?
We were always anticipating hoteling, the sharing offices.
and we'll
Because it
still need to do
it wasn't
yeah.
enough. I mean, we already knew that the 13 wouldn't be enough. So we were gonna be sharing anyway.
Right,
Which is what we do now.
and we're still going to have to.
And we're still,
even-
yeah, we're.
Yeah, even with
share.
the additional, even if with the additional first floor, we're still going to have to do that.
I guess I'm a little uncomfortable with a small group from steering making this decision. I mean, the timing is a little off in terms of, you know, the full board's not meeting this month, and this seems like it would be a good thing for everybody to kind of.
There's
buy
not,
into.
there's 8 cities, there's 8 votes here, and Craig. So that's 9 entities.
Craig is voting.
He can't vote. He can't vote, but he's here.
He can
So-
give an opinion.
Yeah, he
at
can give an
least, yeah.
opinion. So there's 9 entities here out of the,
Oh.
17.
I
The only
guess,
issue with
I
me is
trust
they
you
have-
guys, you've put a lot of thought into this and, you know, bottom line, it's.
Well, to me, it makes sense to combine those 2 spaces. Basis what I'm hearing, right? So, and then like I said, you know, it's only 2% of our budget. So I would make a motion to go with the staff recommendation for the combined space, so.
And I'm okay with that. And I know the whole, like, the sharing spaces, just that point. I grew up with 9 siblings and there wasn't enough room. It was, I mean, that's an exaggeration, but I can't do sharing no more. So I get it.
No, I appreciate the consideration that you've all put into just kind of evaluating whether you need the space, way to mitigate the expenses. And it sounds like per square footage, it's cheaper than what we've been paying here. So that's helpful to justify what we're doing here. And I think, you know, having worked with different organizations, it's like you want to kind of project and not, you know, and not underestimate your growth and accommodate the programs that you're going to have to consider. So, you know, I would support it.
It's not cheap for us to move again.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's one of the considerations too. So we went from Western a year.
We were at Western for 10 years. We've been here for 5. To me, it doesn't make sense for us to spend $50,000 every 5 years just to
To
move furniture
yeah.
around and that sort of thing. Yeah, so
Mhm. Plus it's
finding
not-
something that might meet us for more than
Long
a
time.
5-year time frame is.
And this
And
would be
again,
for a
this
5
one-
to
this
7
one is
year lease.
negotiable.
right now.
There's still, and if we approve this, they will go in and negotiate a better price.
So this is approving a discussion.
Correct.
Go for
Just
7.
moving
Well,
forward for
but we
7.
have to-
7 years.
You have to, we have to
Look at
say
7
yes.
versus 5,
We have
then
to dry up, we'll have to, what you would get next is contracts though in April to approve contracts. But what I would like, if you could, is as we do the final negotiations, well, we have to give them the go ahead. And if we could
I'm
like.
sorry, Jack, when you say give the go ahead
To
to,
go ahead to say, please start our tenant improvements, we're gonna sign on the bottom line, but the negotiation is such and such. Can we take the final negotiation, let's say, to the officers and at least have them tell us that we can go forward with that? So that we don't lose a lot of time. And that's what I'm.
I mean, the other thing is we
We'll
could
get-
lose,
We'll tell them what we want the spaces to look like. They will send that to the landlord. They will give us kind of a final proposal. I think that's what we would want to shop to the officers is
Right.
what their final list of improvements are, what the final square footage rental rate is, the final
many
months of free rent.
Rent.
The good thing that can.
we get tenants to help offset the cost.
Yes.
Yeah,
Will
those
be
Yeah,
used
it's
up.
gotta be in there, yeah.
The way that this one is
Subleasing.
doing free rent, it's not all in your first year. They've spread it out throughout the lease term, so your first year of free rent is not the same value as your 5th month, because that's in your 5th year, and so the first year the free month would be, let's say, 17,953. That value is 20,000 some point down the road, and so it's actually, when you take out a year's or 1 month's rent from the year's calculation,
You're getting more money
you're
back.
getting,
Right.
you're not paying.
Well, that's why it's important to have those numbers
Right.
negotiated.
Right,
7 versus 5, how many months of
Right,
free?
right,
then-
right. So we're getting 3 months when the rent is more expensive. But we can't, yes, but we need approval to continue that discussion.
We're stuck in here.
Right.
Second motion, right?
Well, the other thing,
I put a motion and Bernadette
Do
second.
a motion.
Right, I just want to make sure I'm clear on what we're voting for.
right.
We're voting to continue discussion. Now, we're not voting to, that it's going to happen.
You're really voting to approve.
It's
You're
pretty
voting
much
to approve.
voting to approve.
Them to
the next
negotiate the next.
Yeah.
Negotiate the term.
They're gonna,
Negotiate,
in negotiation,
right.
once they come back to the officers with the negotiated settlement,
Then the project is.
and we decide yes or no to go forward, and then we'll sign.
And then, yeah,
Is that-
and then we have
okay,
a final
okay.
legally approved,
Right.
reviewed lease that.
We are only talking, we are not committing.
Right, but we're not asking but we're asking the officers to have the opportunity
To
to commit, right, if they follow the intent of what this body says.
Does that make sense?
So the officers will decide.
Got that?
with
I have
a-
a hand raised. Courtney.
Go ahead.
If I can offer an opinion, I know I can't vote today, but
No, go ahead.
I'm comfortable with the business case to expand the space. I'm extremely comfortable knowing that the funding cuts are not on the horizon and that we've got a revenue stream that could cover it. And that it seems as though we could cover it now in our current budget, even though it's an increase. So from my perspective, although I don't get a vote, I would support it.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate that. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any last discussion?
And the motion is that negotiations are authorized and the officers will receive the final negotiated for their contract. Okay.
And we're okay with exploring the 7-year option.
Yeah, 7 years.
And if this takes forever, it will bring it back to the steering committee for approval, obviously. If we
So
can.
what's the next
break-
full board meeting?
Next for board meeting is not till April 24th. So we would have to, so we will bring it to, the next meeting if it takes still, and it could. if it takes till- Yeah, if we.
Any opposition? Abstentions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
So I'm saying we're bringing it to the officers if needed before the next meeting.
Right, if it's done, yeah, I mean, if it's not
Okay.
done, yeah.
Thank you very
Invoices have been
much.
approved? Everybody saw the invoices?
Yes.
I move
Yes.
approval.
Have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Have a second?
Second.
Go ahead.
Who was the second?
Right,
Jack.
right.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Yep.
Okay.
Okay, well, so then we're on to REAP 2. The first meeting of the Housing Trust Feasibility Group is going to be March 17th. And we have a complete roster now of cities and people that are going to be on that committee. It's going to be a Zoom. So if you're interested in learning what the Housing Trust is all about, please feel free to ask me for the Zoom link. And I'm sure you can participate.
What time is the meeting? On the 17th?
Starts at 2.
At 2?
Starts at 1:30.
1:30. 1:30 on the 17th.
Send me a link, please. Yeah.
Okay,
I would like
Yes, please.
so much.
It's supposed to end by 3, so.
Yeah,
And we have, and from your city,
complicated stuff.
we have Suja and we have Greg
Stacy.
McLean and
It's Stacy.
Stacy's now belongs to all of us, doesn't she now?
Pretty much.
Okay, so I'll send you the link.
Larry Cosmont.
Cosmo's not part of that though. Okay, so that's happening. And then commercial, Wally, do you want to tell us where we are with the other ones?
Yeah, we're working on an RFP for a consultant to go ahead and do the economic analysis around redevelopment of underutilized properties. We have only 3 cities that are in this round, and they're going to nominate up to 2 sites each for this evaluation. Beyond that, the regional strategy is to take a look at properties that may be becoming obsolete. Things like office parks, office buildings, industrial parks, retail malls, gas stations in particular, which are brownfields, but there's no future for gas stations, probably beyond 10 years at the most. So it's kind of a longer range strategic view of looking at that. We're going to have our economist and our planning consultant visualize what might happen to these things. The gas station, especially hard, I've done a little bit of work on this before, and they're nasty brownfields are expensive to clean up. So the really question is, in a way, what happens to all those gas stations? But we're going to have a database of where they are and what they and so forth. Anyway, that's a long-term version. So there's that. And then the second one is the mobility hubs question. And this is a very interesting project, and Jake's been working on it as well. And our new project manager, Shannon, has been working with me on it. And we're really doing 2 things. One is the literature review. The other is a data review. I'm very interested in looking at the data that we have that tells us who goes where, when, and by what mode. One of the interesting things was years ago, we had before Measure M, Cambridge Systematics did a study of what we were doing internally, and 60% of the trips originating in the South Bay stay in the South Bay. So it's a very local kind of, and that speaks to our local used vehicle initiative, which is you're good up to 10 miles, and that's 90% of all the trips stays in, and 60% of all the trips stay inside. Now, there's a new database out that Metro put together. It's called Locus, and they confirm that it's 57% stay in the South. There's a margin of error. So what we're talking about really is a very heavy local use of local patterns of transportation. And we're trying to figure out, what does a mobility hub do to connect those local trips when you need long distance? It's a little technical. We'll get into it. It'll be fun. There'll be lots of graphics. We'll show you as the progress goes forward. But that's where we're at right now on that one.
Okay. You can do the Environmental Services Center.
So to let you know that SoCalRen has released their public sector offerings. That's going to include lighting, thank goodness, lighting controls. They're looking at projects that are going to achieve at least 10% savings at the meter or more. We do have we've identified some projects that can do that, which one of them Elsa Gundo, but they're not here today. Sports lighting, which that's like your parks, for example, more heat pump water heaters. And so we'll be working with the cities to identify any opportunities for that. Water infrastructure programs for water and wastewater. So if your city has a municipal water, you are the municipal water provider. We have programs for that. And then also we did meet with all of the, I don't know if I reported to you on this or not. We did meet with all of your facility equipment. I think I did at this board meeting. I already did that one. Okay, so then one thing I wanted to let you know also, little disappointing news. is that our decarbonization program, which is the direct install for the residential sector, it was based on income. And so we were really excited that we were going to be able to implement that program South Bay wide, especially because we know that we have some elderly residents that might be live in more affluent areas, but still could use additional services and maybe these incentives. The CEC directed the county to only look at certain geographic locations again. And I guess what happened was they were, even though all, residents could qualify throughout the South Bay, I guess there was some complaining because the last time they had a multi-jurisdictional or multi-county program, that San Diego residents came in and got all the money. And so they wanted to make sure that San Diego residents didn't come in and get all the money again. So they said, okay, well, we're only going to do specific areas within the South Bay. Okay, so they're looking at portions of LA City, they're looking at Carson, they're looking at Hawthorne, Gardena. I might be able to get some sections, for some reason, they have Torrance listed. So we're gonna see what we can do there. My goal, though, is for us to implement super quickly, right? And do such a fantastic job that I can get them to drop those geographic restrictions. Because if I can show that we have a need and we'll look at some of the data, then I think I can convince them to go beyond, right? Because I think we can get it done faster. So anyway, that's my goal. Hopefully that will happen. The other thing is we've been talking to you about business offerings, and I am meeting with that team today from the county that will be coming and talking to us about what that program looks like for us. And it should be implemented throughout the South Bay, no problems. But I'll be able to report out at the board or at the next steering committee, right? Because we won't be meeting at the board, at the next steering committee meeting. So I just continue to, have them. There's lots of areas that need help. There's lots of different communities. And I think it's really important for it to be a holistic approach. And so just to let you know that I'm fighting for that.
Ronson, did you want to do senior services?
Yeah, we're probably, right now, we're looking at doing like a GIS update on senior populations in the South Bay. It's kind of interesting. We're an aging population here in the South Bay, and we have some heat maps of like where we're aging. So we'll do a presentation on that at the next senior services working group.
Also, we did file our AARP grant last week, and that would get us emergency preparedness supplements for seniors as well as emergency preparedness kits. I talked to our area G, and they talked to Beach City's health district. There was a lot of going on, and because I wanted to make sure this was really needed and appreciated, that we really should do this. And everybody said, yeah, put the grant in, it's for AARP. So we'll see I think we find out pretty soon about.
Yeah, and big shout out to Aaron, my colleague, for doing that.
I can.
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Ronson, you were at the ICA meet. We had the emergency preparedness coordinator, that's not our official title, from Santa Monica that spoke. And I had talked to our city manager about having our emergency preparedness guy talk to her, because she has a lot of pertinent information that I think all of us citywide, our cities can benefit from, and maybe the COG, in terms of lessons learned and what they're dealing with now as a result of the fires. So a lot of great information she put out to us that was like, oh crap, never thought about that. And a lot of stuff they're dealing with now. So
yes, speaker.
To the extent
that'd be awesome. Yeah.
She was good. She was really, really good. Very
And
impressive.
this is from Santa Monica?
Santa Monica, I've got her name.
Well, we have our own emergency preparedness person, and so I can talk with her about it too.
Yes. Because they're dealing with a lot of things that they never thought they would be.
Yep.
Okay, the next thing is any updates you want to talk about local travel and e-bike safety?
Yeah. So to start, we are going to be working with I also got this out from Mary Cheryl and Elias to write up a city side case study on the local travel network. This will be used to update the playbook, so cities have a better understanding of the obstacles they may face throughout this challenge, as well as what resources from the COG or other agencies are available to assist with that. And importantly, also how the COG can learn more about what the process looks like from the city staff point of view and how we can better provide assistance. Additionally, we put out a RFP for our Carson to the Sea Caltrans grant, which explores the LTN getting out of Carson down to the San Pedro area. A lot of the streets are currently not LTN eligible as they are high-speed arterials. And so this grant would explore infrastructure improvements and potential strategies to make that connection. We had our pre-proposal meeting, which had almost 18 different consultants attend. So the attendance was very impressive. We're almost fielding questions, and that's in progress. Tomorrow morning, Ann and I will be presenting in Long Beach at the Lifesavers conference. Just brief presentation on the LTN. And this is also in partnership with E-Bike Sense, who is one of the e-bike safety courses here in the South Bay. Additionally, Mayor Suchi's office is hosting a e-bike town hall March 22nd at Paris School in Redondo Beach. This is going to address everything from enforcement to education. The COG will also be making a presentation at this town hall, but there will be an e-bike or regular bike ride afterwards down to the beach, led by the South Bay Bicycle Coalition. And the assembly number will be taking place in that. So if any of your residents are interested in safety measures or just want to try out the e-bike, I guess, you're more than welcome to join with that. And on the note of trying out e-bikes, the General Assembly, there will be a large transportation presence there. We have one of our partners, Strut, has their never before seen NEV or golf cart prototype that they are very nicely bringing to us, to the GA. It's very intuitive, very technological, completely customizable exterior. It's a whole thing. It's very cool. You guys should all check it out. Additionally, we'll have a number of micromobility, e-bike, trikes, NEV vendors there. We are currently in talks with the city as well as our vendors to explore the option of a ride and drive element for the General Assembly. So potentially setting off one of the, not alleys or silos of parking.
Aisles
of parking in their lots to allow people to test drive the vehicles. The large micromobility and transportation presence at the GA in general. I think that is all for LTN. Lots of lots of initiatives going on regarding e-bike safety, and a lot of presence of the LTN. Thank you.
Great. And David, the General Assembly, which we haven't talked a lot about, is really coming together. So David's going to tell you about that.
Yes, couple weeks away, so mark your calendars if you haven't already. Please register if you haven't, because that will help us with the lunch. Great. So we'll have registration opening around 8:30 like we usually do. We're still playing with the exact timing of the day, but we're looking at from like 9 to 10:15-ish for the exhibit halls. We'll do the welcome from around 10:15 to 10:50 or 11. The welcome this year will include reflection on some of the COG's accomplishments over the last 30 years. Colleen has been working with our former chairs to get some video of them reflecting on their time as chair, some of the major accomplishments that took place during their term. We've invited former Supervisor Don Knabe to join us also during that portion and share his reflections on working with the COG. For the program itself, that will be sort of the look ahead that we will be doing. We'll have one sort of group / panel discussion that will focus on COG programs and how they'll help shape the future. So far, we've got Dan Sturgis talking on micromobility. We've worked with Dan many times over the years, and coincidentally, he invented the first gem car in Torrance. So this is very South Bay native. We have a partner from the county to discuss sustainability. We've confirmed Terry Tamminen from Altasea, who will be talking about the blue economy. When we were chatting with him, he had some interesting stats on kind of just the impacts of the fires, all the toxic waste that was in the dirt and everything has been washing up onto shore, settles in the sand, doesn't get washed back out. So he's got some very relevant current information to share with us on that too.
Who was that speaker?
Terry Tamminen. He's a CEO or president, director of
Altasea.
Altasea.
Used to be Schwarzenegger's Department of Natural Resources or something.
Yeah.
Head of the secretary.
We've confirmed our own legal counsel, Mike Jenkins, to be the moderator for that. And then we're looking to add one more to talk about sort of our fiber and neighborhood centers initiatives. We will have a demonstration from a company called Atkins Realis. They have a city simulator tool that we're going to do a very abridged demonstration of, but it helps cities identify the impacts of various disasters on their infrastructure, looking out 20, 30, 50, 100 years to help kind of do some of the advanced planning for your infrastructure. So we're looking at doing something maybe like a extreme heat demonstration, earthquake. We'll have that as a sort of a live walkthrough demo. We have confirmation from Amanda Hansen, who is Governor Newsom's senior advisor on climate. She'll be doing a kind of a standalone, not really a keynote, but her own little session for about half an hour. And then we're going to end the day with, we're calling it a youth panel, but a youth panel to talk about what they heard from the various speakers throughout the day and how they think cities could help start preparing for their future today. And then we will wrap up around 3 or 3:15 and do a little raffle like we've done in the past. I think, I think you all probably, I guess you, I don't know. But I don't think our boards won in the past, but we have some interesting.
Board
raffle-
could.
Staff can.
Yeah, the board could win, just
Board
not our
can,
staff.
But staff can.
Staff can't
There's
win.
a e-bike rental company called
Wombi.
And they've donated 2 3-month rental where you can essentially rent their bike for 3 months and use it as needed for your local. So
I thought you were gonna give free bikes.
e-bike.
They should give free bikes.
For the golf cart.
Or the golf cart, yeah. We want the golf cart. So I can go from Hawthorne to the beach on Rosecrans.
Right. There you go.
We should.
That's a new one. To the beach. Got that, Dave? Dave? Hawthorne to the beach.
And David, maybe instead of call the youth panel, maybe you can call the next generation panel.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Much better.
We have some working titles. I think that might be in 1 or 2 of them.
All right, good,
We'll
good.
focus on those.
Oh, that's really good.
And we'll have our normal exhibit hall in the morning. If your city's interested in exhibiting and hasn't submitted a form yet,
I don't know my gender.
have them reach out to us.
Wait, age range.
I think that's about it. We met our.
A lot of noise. Give a call.
Yeah.
I'll pay for that exercise. That's all we need to do, David. We just need to raise our fundraising goal by
Frugal.
$50.
I'm a cheap son of a gun. My wife calls me cheap, I call myself.
It's Gen Z.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, I think we have no other items other than.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, anybody have any updates for us? Go ahead, Ray.
Mosa Beach is having its 29th annual St. Patrick's Day
Patrick's Day.
parade on Sunday. I know Manhattan Beach is always there with the vehicle, and you guys aren't doing anything, come and hang out.
What time is that?
Represent your cities, come on, get a
What
nice
time? What
convertible, 11 o'clock.
11. Oh.
Cause we get a lot of your bands, we get and from your city and
Oh.
and from all over. So, I mean, it is a quintessential South Bay event.
I think
And it's the only St. Patty's Day parade in town, so.
Have a breakfast meeting at 11.
Well, we don't need you.
Any Q Jackson, anything else? Well, we're having our Earth Day on the 12th of April in Hawthorne, so join us from 10 to 2.
All right.
All right.
I think we're gonna be there.
Oh, yeah, I think you guys always be there, yeah. And also I'm having an autism walk on April 26th. Olympus Park.
What kind of a walk?
Autism.
Right.
It's like, it's the autism month, awareness month.
Autism.
Okay, hearing nothing else, we are.
One more,
Go ahead.
real quick.
That one guy.
Hi, Greg.
There's always that one guy. Just real quick, two FYIs. The Palos Verdes Estates is going to be posting a job for a director of finance, and that should be coming soon. So if you know anyone that wants to move up the ladder into the accounting world, we're very much in need of a director of finance. The second is related to safety, and the fires are very much still on the minds of the peninsula, as many others. We're bringing back the goats in Palos Verdes Estates here shortly.
Oh, nice.
We've identified 4 key areas in our city that we'll attack first, and then we may expand it beyond that. But CAL FIRE, as you may know, has listed the peninsula as a high fire risk area. There were just fires back in New York off of Long Island. It can happen at any time, anywhere.
South Carolina.
In South Carolina, yeah. So anyway, just FYI, we're still very much focused on it. So anything that you're doing with information communication from speakers, et cetera, please continue to keep us updated on those dates and speakers. We, I'd like to participate and learn all about it. So thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. Okay, we are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Right.
Right.